get by. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Wise here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. Today is no different. I have Shaheem Alam of FiveRingsMarketing.com. And Shaheem, before I formally introduce you, I always like to point out other episodes people should check out of the podcast. Since this is part of the Top Agency series, I've had some interesting ones. I had two actually with Jason Swank. Jason Swank built his agency up to 8 figures and sold it. And then he actually been buying up agencies. He also has a great podcast and a group for agency owners. His podcast is a Smart Agency Masterclass. Another good one was Todd Taskey. Todd Taskey has a Second Bite podcast. He actually helps pair agencies with private equity. And he finds sometimes they make more on the second bite when the private equity sells again than they do on the first. So he talks about valuations, the agency landscape, and everything under the sun as far as that goes. And Kevin Hurrigan of Spinutech also, he's Shaheem has the agency, been running agency since 1995. So it was interesting to see the different periods of time and the evolution there. And that was a really good one as well. So check it out. More on InspiredInsider.com. And this episode is brought to you by Rise25. Rise25, we help businesses give to and connect to their Dream 100 relationships. And how do we do that? We actually help you run your podcast. We're an easy button for a company to launch and run a podcast. We do the accountability, the strategy, and the full execution of the podcast. And Shaheem, we call ourselves kind of the magic elves that work in the background to make it look easy for the host and the company so they can create great content, create great relationships, and let us handle everything else. You know, for me, the number one thing in my life is relationships. I'm always looking at ways to give to my best relationships, and I found no better way over the past decade to profile the people and companies I most admire and share with the world what they're working on. So if you've thought about podcasting, you should. If you have questions, you can go to rise25.com to learn more. And I'm excited to introduce today's guest, Shaheem Alam. He's co-founder and CEO of FiveRings Marketing. They help B2B companies get leads. He started in the grind of door-to-door sales many years ago and then built FiveRings. He's built FiveRings to over 40 people over the past 4 years. And we're going to talk about what he did. So Shaheem, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
So first of all, just talk about FiveRings Marketing and what you do.
Yeah, for sure. So, as a company, we're a full service agency. We help B2B companies with their top of funnel leads. And that can be through outbound sales, through inbound marketing, ads, SEO, cold calling, kind of all of the above. And really the sweet spot is when there are companies that either are struggling to figure this out themselves. They have salespeople that can close deals, but it's the pipeline that needs to be fed, and they're unable to kind of build that internally, or it costs too much to build it internally, or they've just had a bad experience with bad hires, sales development reps and things like that to do this, or they have it's already functioning and it's all working, all their channels are humming, but they want to test out new channels, test out different approaches, and so that's when they hire us as well to just help scale that further. So, but we're all about top of funnel lead generation.
How did you get into this? What was the thought when you first started the company?
Yeah, so it's actually, myself and my wife, we co-founded the company, and technically she founded it. So it existed as a side hustle for her 2 years before I was even in the picture. And then at one point she was kind of thinking about switching careers, and she was getting offers to be an account executive at a ton of different startups. And one of her friends who's very, very successful told her, why don't you just start a company and help all of them? And it was this thing, right? Light bulb moment. She always wanted to start a company. And so and then we basically partnered on it from there. She had some experience doing LinkedIn outreach. I had some experience with cold emailing, cold calling, we both did, and stuff like that. So we started it. That's how it started, I guess. And then, we figured it out along the way.
So what were you doing at the time?
So at that time, I guess she really like helped me out with that, I would say. At that point, I was also in a transition period where I had, you mentioned door to door. I had been in that industry. It was HVAC, selling like, furnaces, ACs, water filters for a while. And over the years, that industry, like it just became weird, really. And it like, I was at a time where nothing was working. I wasn't selling. I wasn't able to build sales teams. Like there was different companies I was contracted with. My commissions weren't getting paid. And it was just like, I had spent all the money I ever earned. I was in a lot of debt. I was pretty much bankrupt. And I had to just leave that industry and go after something else. So I was looking for a job. And so in that time period, we like partnered on this. She went full time on it. I still got a job as an account executive at a startup called RenoRun. And I worked on FiveRings part time. She was full time for the first year until the company could pay me. And then I went full time as well.
Talk about maybe a day in the life of door to door for a second.
Yeah, as a rep, you start. So they're long days, but you start. You come to the office around, I think it was like 9ish, and you start doing pitch practice. You have a ton of agents in the office. Think of like Wolf of Wall Street or Boiler Room type stuff. Lots of agents. Pitch practice happening at 10.
What happens at pitch practice? Like, what do
you pair up with somebody and you pitch. They give you a bit of feedback. They pitch. You give you feedback. You switch. You find someone else. And then just chit chat, hanging out, drinking your coffee, starting your day.
What feedback, valuable feedback, did you get from pitch coaches?
So yeah, I learned a lot from my manager at the time. Like when I first started door to door, like I sucked at sales, terrible. For my first 3 weeks, I made no sales, and it was commission only. So I was working 3 weeks, 6 days, right, a week, making no money. But what flipped the switch was when he like taught me to take control. And so what would happen was we would be in the basement of like whoever we'd get into the basement to look at their furnace. And then we would have like a whole little pitch and presentation. And then we have to go upstairs, get their gas bill, and start like running like savings calculations and really start the full presentation upstairs. And I would have a hard time getting to that. I would be stuck in the basement and I'd end up outside of the house, right? So what he said was like, he's like, Shaheem, don't ask them, just take control. Just tell them, hey, let's pop upstairs, grab me your Enbridge bill, that's the gas company. Pop upstairs, grab me your Enbridge bill, and we'll get you sorted. And just walk off. That's what, and I tried that and it worked. He's like, just walk off. You're in their house. They're not going to just stay in the basement. They're going to follow you up and then just go sit at the table. And they're going to come, they're going to give you the Enbridge bill and you're going to start the conversation. And literally the next day I closed my first deal, 2 deals actually, that day. So that was like a huge game changer of like taking control.
So pitch practice, and then what was next in the day?
Then the formal training starts. And this is like, I implement this to this day with like my sales team and our cold callers and everything in our company. But formal training. So this is when we're learning like the 7 steps to an HVAC sale, the 5 steps to a water filter sale, the psychology of selling, body language, tonality, all of these things. These were actual structured lessons, day in and day out, week in, week out. And you, as a rep, if you've been there for 3 months, you've heard the same presentation so many times, but like you're always learning. And then you're just literally become second nature to you. So that goes on for about an hour. And then there's like a big, like rah, like motivational speech. Everybody gets pumped up. We do a chant, start screaming. And then, it's out to the vans and out to the field.
What were some of those steps that were essential?
I mean, it's like the basic kind of 7 steps to a sale type of stuff. If I remember, like those ones, it was like intro. So it was specific to the actual like sale. So for example, like the first goal is to like just introduce yourself and like have some kind of like, just don't get the door slammed in your face, right? The next thing is like to get into the house, because you can't sell them at the door. You have to go look at the equipment they have in their home. And then it was like I think it was like the pitch, the presentation, the something, and then the close. I don't know. I don't remember it, honestly. Yeah.
I'm just curious because the main essentials in there, there's probably the middle parts maybe specific, but it's really, it reminds me of kind of direct response copywriting a little bit. Like, the goal of the headline is to get into the subhead. Goal of the subhead is to get into, like you were getting there, you have to build rapport. and then you have to get in the door, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then you have to do, probably that
Build the
middle
need.
part.
That was one of the steps as well, as build or create the need. And that's what you're doing in the basement by asking them questions. And then it's the presentation and then the close. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really interesting. Because like you said, there's a formula to it, but like the middle part, the content may be a little bit different, but
Yeah.
probably they're all kind of similar as far as the steps go.
It's a sales process. Yeah. Like,
So now you go out in the field. Now what?
yeah.
Are you literally knocking
Yeah.
on doors? Just going door to door?
Yeah. So we get into vans, right? And again, it's a whole like opera. So we have managers or team leads that each have like a van, and this is like a Honda Odyssey 7-seater. We're pre-assigned like who's going into which van and everything, so agents know they're not like confused or trying to pick favorites or whatever. It's like, no, you're assigned to this van, you're going here. So the first thing we do is actually went to lunch. So we go and we eat, and then we'd hit the field, so that there's no interruption for food in the middle of the day. So around 1-ish, we're at 1, maybe 2, we're actually on the field. We're dropping people off. And, I was a rep for like a little bit, but I eventually became a team lead manager. I was running a whole office at one point. But yeah, you drop your team off to specific neighborhoods. You give them their map, like, hey, like you give, screenshot of the map, and then you give that to them. You do like a little drive-through actually of the neighborhoods. So there's a whole thing here too. So you're driving through the neighborhood and you're just getting them excited, right? Because you're like, hey man, like look at the trees. Like this is like a 30-year-old a neighborhood. Furnaces are definitely old. You can tell the furnaces are old based on the type of ventilation of the houses too. So when you see a lot of those, you get excited. Like it's like a good, ripe neighborhood. Look, it's like a bunch of townhouses. You can knock out like so many doors in such a small period of time. Like all these kind of things, you just kind of get them amped up. What I would do is on that drive, I would do a couple things. So on the way to the first neighborhood, I would do like something called Bitfire. It's like a whole like objection handling type of an exercise. And I would just like throw up like $5 or $10 for whoever wins. So that just gets them pumped. Now, when it's time for the first drop off, I ask them, hey, what song do you want to listen to, right? Whatever song they want, we're going to play it. We're going to blast it on the way to their turf. And then when we're there, do that little drive through and then drop them off, get out of the van. They're dropping off. They're putting on their gear. They're getting their binder ready. Give them a little bit of a pump up talk as well. And then they're off and they're going, if you can get them like running to the first door, that's what you want. Yeah.
I ask these questions because I feel it's probably stuff you do with your team, and because this is what you're doing. I mean, you're doing it for other companies, but it sounds like there's a lot of mindset stuff because it's brutal to do cold calling.
It is. Yeah. We had people, and it shouldn't be, this is not the ideal scenario, right? But we had like people that would come in day in and day out, and they wouldn't make money for like months. I would wonder, like, why are you still here? Like, you could work at McDonald's and make more. But they like love the culture, they love the energy, they love the support. And I had the biggest team out of all the managers. That's why I eventually became office manager. But that's what it was. It was like that culture that I had built. That's what like drove everything. Because it sucks to knock doors, especially in Toronto, where it's like, -20, -30, blizzards. It doesn't matter. We're out there. We're knocking doors. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because each step that you're talking about is mindset and getting people's mindset right from the beginning. When you're actually doing the pitch coaching, and then you're getting pumped up, and then you're like doing bonding in the car, and then the bonding, and making sure you're fed. Like that. It's all of that stuff. It's really interesting. Do you remember kind of a crazy story of actually? Because you don't know what you're showing up to. I mean, you're knocking on a door randomly, right?
Yeah. Tons of stories. Like, there's some houses like you just don't want to go into. Like, it just smells so bad. Like, it smells like just like, I don't know, like dog poop and cigarettes and like nastiness, but you got to go make money, right? So you go in and you just suck it up and you do it. There's like stuff like this. We used to get told to like F off, get a real job. People will like record us walking down the street. They'll call cops on us sometimes too. And then cops will show up. We tell them, show them all our ID and everything. They're like, okay, just like don't knock on that door again or something. So, a lot of stuff like that would happen. And we had been trained, and then I trained my team too, to just like laugh it all off. Like your first reaction to anything negative is like a chuckle. Like you just like smile and laugh and like you just move on to the next door. That became like second nature.
It builds grit. So what are some of the stuff that you bring to that experience with your team now?
So what I learned, a lot of stuff I learned. I think one thing I learned was culture. Culture is like the most important thing in a company. We take forever to hire people, and that's because of culture fit. And we fire really, really, really fast. Again, because of culture fit. So I think it's really important to understand what your culture is, like what, and it could be different, right? But what that is, and then like really stick by that, and then your team guards that as well. So that's what I'm definitely like doing today in the company. We have a team of cold callers and BDRs. They're doing hard work. They're like cold emailing, cold calling, LinkedIn outreach, all this stuff. So same thing of like, we have daily morning trainings. We have formalized like training as well. And then we have coaching and call listening. We have like check-in like one-on-ones with them just to see how they're doing and all of that. So all that psychological stuff is there. We have incentives, like bonuses that we throw out. Like, hey, whoever books the most meetings today gets like, $50, $100, whatever. Things like that as well. So a lot of those practices are in play in the current company.
Talk about the hiring process a little bit, and what are the things you do?
Hiring, at FiveRings, like right now.
Yeah, FiveRings. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have a recruiter full time. Initially, so like, we only like headhunt really. Like that's what we do. Like I would say like 80-90% of our hiring is headhunting, or it's like referrals from existing employees. And so we reach out to people, we tell them like what the role is, and if they're interested in chatting, we ask a couple qualifying questions. If they pass, then cool, they get the first screening call with our recruiter, Selena. And then after that, if they pass that, they get a call with the hiring manager, whoever that may be. They do like a lot of like skill-based and knowledge-based type of questions and testing. I believe very strongly in like not just asking questions, but actually giving them tasks. So you're going to cold call live on an interview with us. You're going to, or there's going to be homework after that second interview for you to like go write out some messaging and deliver it to us and send it to us, or do some research or whatever, right? So there's actual tests. And then if they pass that, then the third interview is with me. And I'm trusting like my hiring managers, evaluation of their knowledge and skill. I just want to know who they are as a person. I ask about their values, I ask about who they are, what do they like to do, what they want to achieve, like why do they even want to work here? It's to learn about their motivations and what gets them going, and who they are as people. And then, if that passes, then they're hired.
Like you were saying, Shaheem, what's really interesting with, the cold calling piece, when someone's commission only, right? Like you were and some of the people, the culture has to be really strong, and there has to be, what's keeping them there, especially if they're not making any sales.
Yeah.
Who's a good fit? Like what are you looking for in that? Because it takes a certain special type of person to really do that type of position.
Yeah. You have to have a reason to be there. Like that's like what I found was the most important thing. Like you're either trying to like prove something to yourself or to someone else. You either have like, I don't know, like crazy goals, like aggressive goals that you like want to achieve and you believe you can do it. You either back against the wall, like I don't know, maybe you can't get employed anywhere else for various different reasons, and like this is all you've got, right? It's like, because you can make a lot of money. Like there was a lot of money made in door to door because it was commission only, but you got paid well. And so, but to like stick it out, I think it's like that reason has to be really, really strong. So that's number one. And then number two, it's coachability. Like you need to come in and you need to be like, almost like, you have to come in and almost be like moldable, right? Like and just trust that like, if you follow these steps, you will make money. And just follow those steps, like do what you're told kind of thing, like as far as like the steps to the sale and all of that goes.
Talk about the evolution of services. When you first started, what services you offered, because I know they've evolved. What was it like when you first started and you're working? What was the company like actually with your wife? What did the staff look like? And we can talk about the services at that time.
Yeah. So initially, we just started with cold LinkedIn outreach and cold emailing. That's what we did. And it was just me and her. She like we just somehow like scrapped it together, right? All the work that needed to get done. Eventually, like a few months in, we were able to hire like our first part-time employee who like, did some of that work as well and just passed off some of the more manual kind of tasks. And we did more of the messaging and stuff like that. But we did like LinkedIn. Then eventually we dropped the cold email and LinkedIn outreach became our only service, and cold calling. But we were selling like a lot of the LinkedIn outreach kind of stuff. Now everybody's doing that. But back then it was like different. It was unique. People didn't know how to leverage LinkedIn to get leads. So we rode that wave for quite some time, and also did cold calling as well. And those were our two core services outbound. We then eventually we added on PPC. So that's like LinkedIn ads, Google ads. That was a very small part of our business. We started focusing more on it last year. And then getting more clients for that, started growing that out a little bit more, hired someone like more dedicated for it rather than just like a contractor working part-time. So we added that piece in. And then just like by interviewing our customers and talking to them, and we used to offer an outsourced account executive, so a closer that's outsourced. And because one client wanted that and we created that for them and it went really well. But when we went to go sell this to the market in general, like we couldn't sell not a single sale. And we learned very quickly that, well, not very quickly, actually, it took longer, but we learned that companies want to keep their salespeople close. They don't mind outsourcing the prospecting work. And so instead of a full-time account executive, we switched that to a full-time BDR because there's different use cases between fractional BDR type of work and full-time. So, and then that saw a big lift. That we started that service September of last year. And then we started like upselling clients on it, switching clients to that package where other things weren't working. And then, so that grew this year as well. And then this year we added on content, like very early in the year. We added on content marketing. So that's content writing, content strategy, things like that.
What did the fractional BDR, what does that look like?
So that's where you're getting a cold caller who's doing, 50, 70 dials per day, but that cold caller is also working for two other clients, right? So it's like fractional. The LinkedIn outreach stuff, it's like using different tools to do outreach on LinkedIn, but then again, the account manager, the research team, the SDR are working on several LinkedIn accounts as well. So that's what I mean by fractional.
So the BDR specifically, are they focused on the cold calling piece?
All three. So the BDR, the full-time BDR is doing like all three. They could be doing like really manual strategic enterprise level prospecting. They could be doing volume-based stuff, but across multiple channels. They can handle inbound leads that are already coming into the company and they don't have anybody to nurture them and, really qualify them. So they can handle all that. Lots of different stuff because it's a full-time resource.
Walk me through a cold call situation, because that person may be handling different types of accounts, right? So what's the approach when they're calling?
So we always have an email sequence running as well. So we always refer to the email first. However they open up, right? Some people like to say the "how are you" thing, others don't. Like it's fine, whatever. We say, I sent you an intro email the other day from X company. Does that ring a bell? No, it doesn't. Oh, no worries. It's just an intro email. I was doing a bit of research on your company and I was wondering, and then we ask a question to start the conversation. And that question, if it starts the conversation, okay, cool. Now we're in a back and forth. Or we get shut off right there, right?
Is there good ways to get past a gatekeeper, right? Because I imagine maybe they're having the conversation not with the CEO founder, or I don't know, maybe different businesses are trying to get in touch with the CMO or COO or whatever it is, but are they often getting talking to the gatekeeper first in that situation?
So we get cell phone numbers. So we're calling the lead directly.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. So you're not going with gatekeepers.
No.
What are ways people, that the team members build rapport quickly? Because obviously you're cold calling someone on their cell phone. What do they do? And I don't answer anymore if I don't know the number, because I get so many calls on my phone. So how do you teach them to build rapport quickly?
Yeah, I think like first thing's tonality. If you sound like you're, calm, professional, like almost like someone that they know, if you sound like you're someone that they know, it kind of already drops the guard. Um, that's like one thing right off the bat. And then the second thing, you have like warm touches, like, hey, I sent you an email, does that ring a bell? And we did send that email, so it's there in their inbox. So that's like, no, it doesn't. Okay, well, you're still like the, VP of sales at this company, right? Yeah, I am. What's this about? So yeah, well, this, and then you ask a relevant question. If you can ask a question that shows like, okay, you're like able to have an, you like, their role, their company, what they're talking about, you're hitting a pain point potentially, then you build a little bit more credibility and you earn the right to a conversation. Of course, it doesn't happen, all the time, like, of course, but that's how we do it.
Yeah, and also the call itself, it feels like a follow-up call because you're referencing an email, even though it's the first call.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you're following up, even though you've never called them before.
Yeah. And I also believe, I train the team on this a lot because I think there's a lot of bad habits that get built up. But just like be straight up, like be honest. Like, someone says like, is this a sales call? Just be like, yeah, it is. Do you want to give me a shot? Just straight up. People respect that. Don't try to like go beat her. Oh no, it's not a sales call. I'm just trying to find out if like this. No, just say, yeah, it is. Do you want to give me a shot? If they're, what else? I had something else in mind. Oh, well, where'd you get my number from? Oh, it's actually this database called Sales Intel. It has everybody's phone numbers. You should try it for your sales team.
That's funny.
Just be honest. Yeah.
Then they end up hiring you.
Yeah.
I'm sure that happens where you're on a sales call and they're interested in how you got their information and getting on the phone with them, and they hire you from it.
Yeah. That's like one of the best kind of like responses I would have for someone, especially that like, they're comparing competitors, and it's like, okay, well, you search for everyone else, but we got to you, right? And it worked on you, right? How do I know if it's going to work? Well, it worked on you, right?
So we talked a little about the evolution of the services. Talk about the niche for a second and how the niche that you've gone after has evolved.
Yeah. So we've like historically, we've always worked with B2B tech companies, SaaS, tech, whatever, startups. That's where we worked with. But everybody knows the tech sector is getting hit really, really hard. And so we haven't officially like pivoted, but we're in the process of pivoting. So we're reaching out, outside of the tech industry to other industries. We're exploring like, where the messaging is going to resonate. We haven't figured it out yet, still in the works. But it had to happen because just as a business, we can't have all our eggs in one basket. That was the same idea with the services. We had to have multiple services. I don't know, what if one day LinkedIn just shuts down as a platform, right? Our whole business is dead. So we need to have multiple services, multiple ways of like revenue streams, and multiple ways of just helping our customers too. It improves the offering, and the same thing with the industry. So we're still in the midst of exploring that.
How did your pricing evolve throughout the years?
Yeah, I think we're charging like quadruple what we first started with. I think at least, and of course there's different packages and whatnot. But you gotta. This was my weak point. This is where Nilafar, she was CEO. She made sure the finances were in order. She made sure we were always profitable. So you just have to run the numbers. You have to be monitoring your margins, and whatever makes sense. Because at the end of the day, it's a business and it has to be profitable. So as we hired, as we improved our services, as we added more tools and things like that, we kept up with the margins. But then also, I would say, once you have like experience under your belt, you have case studies, you have like you've proven it, and you're going to deliver results, then you can charge for that. That's what we did too. And then also, I think as you increase your prices, you get rid of like the annoying customers as well. Like I remember one time this is early days, we were like charging like $1,500 a month for something, and we kept getting like pricing objections of like, oh, we want a discount. And me and Nilu were just like, you know what? We're just going to raise our prices. Instead of like lowering our prices, we're just going to raise our prices and just go to someone that has money. We raised it to $2,000 a month. We stopped getting pricing objections because we were talking to people that can afford us.
What type of advice do you have for people working with a family member or spouse? Because, obviously you co-founded this company with your wife.
Mhm.
There's probably
Yeah,
advantages and disadvantages to that.
yeah. Like I feel like if you can make it work, it's like the best possible partnership that can exist. Um, what we did was we upon like just as we were starting it, like we had these conversations. We made sure to set rules and boundaries. I think like so I was talking about the rules and boundaries, right? We said, okay, we both agreed we're never gonna let work come into our personal life and let personal affect work. We could hate each other at work. We're gonna love each other personal. We hate each other personal. We're gonna love each other at work. Like it cannot overlap. Um, that also means that making sure that work is work, and then we set time aside for personal too. So we'd have like walks and dinners where it's so easy to start talking about the business, but then you have to set that rule, like, okay, we're not going to talk about work during this walk or during this dinner or date or whatever.
And then you're
So you
just
have to set
silent.
rules.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right. So you have to set those rules and boundaries, and then I think the underlying of it is any successful relationship, you need to be able to put your ego aside. You need to be able to communicate openly and honestly and share your thoughts and feelings. And the other person needs to be able to accept and understand your thoughts and feelings. And that's important in a relationship, but that's also important in a business partnership. Like it's not personal. This is just how I'm feeling. I'm just expressing it. And the other person has to understand that and vice versa. So those basics need to be there.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to do.
Yeah.
Talk about the decision of your wife stepping away.
Yeah. So over time, what Neelu likes to do is she loves the startup part of the business, not the okay, we're humming, like time to grow it to the next level type of thing. Like she's a very like, all right, I've got this other idea. So right now she's building another company called FiveRings Academy, teaching Spanish to English online courses. It went live a couple months ago.
What's it called?
So FiveRings Academy.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, there's a TikTok channel as well. It has like 600,000 followers. Um, you can interview her for that. But basically, it's so she's building that. That's her project. We have like some real estate investments as well, so she like manages some of that part too. She works on that too. So it was really like her kind of like she was no longer, I guess, like
Didn't excite her anymore as much.
yeah, it didn't excite. Yeah, exactly. It wasn't fulfilling. It wasn't exciting. Like it was kind of like done. It's time to move on. And so versus me, like I'm fine with like, staying and then like growing and kind of doing all of that kind of stuff. So that's really where the decision came from.
Talk about filling those gaps, right? When you have someone leave, especially important to the company as CEO, co-founder.
Yeah.
How did you go about filling the gaps?
Yeah, we underestimated it. Anyone else listening to this is going through that change, like do not underestimate it. It's so big. Few things. So yeah, like the general high level responsibilities. Like, so I had already taken over like sales for the company from her a little bit earlier in the year, as far as like our salesperson that we were managing. But around that same time, our salesperson, our account executive, she also resigned. And so I was the salesperson now for the company, right? That had to happen. All of my existing responsibilities, I had not handed them off yet. And so you have to create a plan as to like who you're going to hand them off to. Like, do you even have like the material that you can pass on to hand it off, right? So I think like that was so important. The finance part, biggest thing. I know nothing about finance. Like I was the worst. I made like door to door. I made a lot of money. I didn't keep a single dime, literally. So that what we found was like she actually needed to train me on the different things that she looks at. Now we have a financial controller and he runs all the analysis and things like that, but he gets instruction from me. And so that was like one of the biggest things where like now, like more recently, she actually like sat down and like taught me some things, and that helped us because that was a big started making some mistakes basically, along the finance side of things. And then also we hired some people too. Like she was kind of overseeing marketing. So we hired a fractional CMO. We brought in another advisor as well to just kind of like, again, provide guidance and whatnot and be that sounding board that she was before. And she still is. She can't avoid it. I live with her, but that was, that still like needed to happen. So we hired some people as well. Hired like a recruiter too, because she was like HR and recruiting. So we hired somebody there too. So, but I think like it's just understanding like, okay, it's not just roles, but like it's strengths and weaknesses. So if you're weak somewhere and that person just left, that was their strength, you need to hire somebody that can actually be as strong, or you need to learn and truly like learn that so you can take it over. Yeah.
Talk about the importance of SOPs, operating procedures, because I know you're thinking a lot about that now.
Yeah, very, very important. We did a company survey, like a quarterly survey that we do with just across the company, anonymous, and give feedback. And we found that a lot of people, like their biggest concern was like communication. So then we did another survey to figure out, well, what do you guys all mean by communication? And it turned out like people just didn't know like where their job started and where it ended and someone else's job started, right? And also like what is expected of them. How do they know if they're doing good or doing bad? None of that was formalized. Like it was, but like not really. So we did a lot of work this year on every single department, every single role, formalizing it, writing it down so everyone understood what their job is. And then also the processes around that too. I built out a lot of processes for our first couple services, but then the rest, like it fell apart. So now I have Shane, who's our director of client strategy. He's working on putting a lot of that together and formalizing it and actually improving and giving it the attention that it needs. I think like that's the basics. Our advisor, Rick, what did he say? Oh yeah, he always says, be brilliant with the basics. So be brilliant with the basics. He's like every business, like as long as you're brilliant with the basics, your business is going to be successful. Very true.
Shaheem, I want to talk about a little bit more about exactly what you do. And I know you have a lot of people can check out FiveRingsMarketing.com. They have a page that's case studies. You can check that out. The one I want to talk about is overview. But I do want to mention there's 2 episodes related to this that people can check out. I did one with the D. Clevitt, who basically that's what she does for companies. She actually goes in and documents processes, SOPs, and systems for companies. So that was, I love that one. We actually geeked out on our tech stack, but she really kind of breaks down how she thinks about SOPs. There's another one with Owen McGabb, who is a co-founder, I think, of Suite Process, which is a software. We actually use it to actually document our SOPs. So people can check that episode out I did with Owen as well. Overview. What did you do with the company Overview?
Yeah, overview.ai. That's their website. So we started working with them when it was just directly with the founder, the CEO. We did LinkedIn outreach. So we like used LinkedIn to generate leads, did really, really well. He started closing deals, started making some revenue, raised another round of funding, and then they came to us, okay, I remember it was like one of those like clients may be thankful, but it's very rare for them to say like, hey, thank you for your work. Like thank you for what you like helped us achieve. It's like so rewarding to hear that. And so they were one of the clients that said that, and then they expanded. So what happened was we saw them go from us working with just the founder to now them hiring like 3 salespeople or 4 salespeople. So not only are we doing LinkedIn outreach for all the whole team now, but also they added on cold calling as a service. So now we're having callers, calling, email, like all 3 channels basically. And we absolutely killed it. Like we were booking like 50, 60 meetings a month. They closed a lot of deals from that. And how their contracts work is there's like an initial deal, but then it expands. It's like on one production line in a factory, and then it expands to all the production lines in the factory if that works out really well. So they've closed like millions of dollars in business just from like the initial and the expansion with us. And so that was really great because we saw that client evolve, from just a small startup, just founders selling to a full sales operation, which is really cool.
What are some mistakes you see people making with outreach on LinkedIn and email? Because obviously, what you did with Overview worked really well. So what are things people should be doing, and what are some mistakes people make?
Yeah, very common stuff is like like sending essays, like the messages are so long and it's all about them. Like, hey, like this is my company, this is my product, this is what we do, blah, 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 rather than actually just keeping it short and sweet and focusing on like what benefit are you actually delivering or what problem are you solving. The art is in being able to deliver that message in like 2-3 sentences max and make it relevant, make it impactful. Like that's the art. And so, yeah, literally on LinkedIn, if you're reaching out to somebody, your message is longer than 3 lines or longer than 4 lines, like it's way too long. You need to cut that down. And then focus on them. What are you going to do for them? I would say like that's like the biggest thing that I've seen. Yeah.
What are some ways, again, you just met them or you don't know them, what are some ways that you express how it's going to benefit them or what's going to benefit them or talking to you is going to benefit them?
Like just any service in general?
Yeah.
Like what are...
Maybe a tech service like you're talking?
Yeah. Well, really like, so here's it's like feature versus benefits, right? So for example, right, do you care that your shoes are made out of like genuine leather, or do you care that they're comfortable to walk in? Or do you care that they look good when you're out and all dressed up, right? So it's like you're selling, I guess, whatever the emotion is tied to is what you want to be talking about. And emotion is not tied to features. It's tied to actual outcomes that people will experience. So read that. And then also switch out your we's and I's to you's. Not like, hey, we'll help you do this. Instead, say, you'll achieve this. So just change the we to a you and rephrase your sentences.
Love it.
Yeah.
First of all, I have one last question. Before I ask it, I want to point people to FiveRingsMarketing.com to learn more. My last question is mentors. Mentors throughout your life. And I wanted to start with your dad and your dad's influence on you.
I would say like, so my dad and I, he worked really, really hard. We came from Pakistan. I was born in Pakistan, came here when I was 7. And since the day we landed, I swear, like he worked like a lot. So first thing was I didn't really see him as much. And so we weren't really close. But what I think I really got from him was the work ethic, not just by like watching it, but I remember one time I was in like grade 5 or something, and I had a homework problem that I couldn't solve. And I was like, I couldn't get it, right? So I go up to him, he's like working on the desk. Go up to him, I was like, this is so hard. And he like put his glasses down, like turned to me, and he's like, nothing is hard. And then he proceeded to help me. But like for some reason that sticks in my head, like nothing is hard. And that's how I kind of like, if you just, for what I take is if you just work at it long enough, work at it hard enough, like you'll get it, you'll solve it. And so that work ethic is what I really, I think got from my dad.
I love it. Shaheem, I want to be the first one to thank you. Everyone check out FiveRingsMarketing.com to learn more. And we'll see everyone next time. Thanks.
Thank you, Jeremy.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sailing right now. I'm feeling like $100 grand.